You never think your kid is going to be the one drinking at 15. Other people's kids? Sure. The stories you hear in parent groups, the cautionary tales you read in articles, the anonymous confessions on parenting podcasts. Those are about other kids, not your sweet, polite, funny, slightly awkward son who still eats cereal for dinner when you let him and hugs you when no one's watching. But then it happens. It happened to me on a Wednesday. A completely regular, boring Wednesday. The kind of day you forget before it's even over. I was folding laundry and looking for matching socks that don't exist when I found a receipt in Theo's jeans pocket. It was crumpled, almost shredded, like he'd tried to throw it away but missed. I almost tossed it without looking, but something made me smooth it out. 2 Red Bulls, 1 bag of chips, 1 mini bottle of Jack Daniels. It hit me like a punch in the chest. The kind you don't see coming because the house is quiet, the weather's nice, and there's literally no reason to brace yourself. At first, I told myself it had to be a mistake. Maybe it wasn't his. Maybe a friend used his pants. Maybe it was a joke. Kid's joke, right? But deep down, I knew. You know when it's your kid. And so I sat on the edge of my bed, still holding a pair of rolled up socks, and did something I hadn't done in years. I cried. Quietly, stupidly, over a piece of paper, and the realization that my son wasn't just growing up. He was stepping into a world I couldn't fully protect him from anymore. Let me back up for a second. My name is Laura. I'm 44, divorced, work in marketing, which sounds more exciting than it is. I have 1 child, Theo, 15, good heart, messy room, smart mouth. He plays soccer, watches conspiracy theory videos on YouTube, and makes the best scrambled eggs I've ever had, though he refuses to eat them himself. We've always been close. Not best friends close, but close enough that he still tells me which teachers are annoying, who has a crush on who, and what memes are currently destroying the internet. So how did we get here? That's what I kept asking myself. And of course, the answer is complicated. Because adolescence is complicated. Because brains don't finish developing until 25. Thank you, Psychology Today. And because this age is literally built for testing limits. But that didn't make it hurt less. That night, I didn't confront him. I couldn't. I needed time to think, to feel all the things I was suddenly drowning in. Guilt, shame, panic, and yes, a bit of anger. Not because he drank, but because he lied. Okay? Maybe also because he drank. That night, I opened a bottle of wine. Ironic, I know. And texted my friend Joanne, who has 3 boys and doesn't sugarcoat anything. Me. Found a receipt in Theo's pocket. Jack Daniels. He's 15. WTF do I do? Joanne. Welcome to level 2 parenting. The teenage years. Me. I'm not ready for level 2. I didn't pass level 1 yet. Joanne. None of us passed. The system just promotes you. I laughed. A short, bitter laugh. But it helped. The truth is, I wasn't angry at Theo as much as I was heartbroken. I remembered when he was 4 and cried when someone said a bad word in a cartoon. When he used to line up his toy dinosaurs on the windowsill and tell me which ones were nice and which ones were mean but misunderstood. And now, Jack Daniels? I kept thinking, maybe it's just curiosity. Maybe it's not a pattern. Maybe it's a fluke. But then I thought, what if it's not? What if this is the beginning of a crack I can't fix? What if this is the part where he starts lying more often, hanging out with kids who normalize things he's not ready for? What if he gets in a car with someone drunk? What if? It's the what ifs that destroy you. I spent the next day doing what most parents do when they're spiraling. I Googled. I read articles with titles like, What to Do When Your Teen is Drinking, and How to Parent Without Losing Your Mind or Your Child's Trust. I scrolled through forums, watched videos, listened to psychologists explaining the dangers of underage drinking, and then I closed it all. Because the truth is, no blog post or expert advice can tell you what to do when the person you love most in the world starts slipping into a version of life that scares you. The only thing you can do is show up, even if you're scared, even if you're furious, even if you don't have the right words. So that night, I made spaghetti, Theo's favorite. He came home, dropped his backpack, mumbled hey the way he always does, and went to wash up. And when we sat down to eat, I took a breath so deep it shook in my ribs. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I said, "Hey, we need to talk." He froze, fork halfway to his mouth. And just like that, the real story began. But before we dive into this thrilling story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit like so that YouTube can show you more content like this. "Hey, we need to talk." I swear I saw his shoulders tense before the words even left my mouth. Like some part of him knew this wasn't going to be about school or chores or his laundry pile that had started to resemble a wildlife habitat. Theo looked up at me slowly, chewing like he was trying to buy time. "Okay," he said. "About what?" I didn't answer right away. I watched him for a moment. Really watched him. His face was still so young in some ways. That soft skin under his eyes. The dimple that only showed when he laughed too hard. But there was something new too. A sharpness around his jaw. The beginnings of a shadow above his lip. A boy becoming a man, whether I was ready or not. I reached into the side pocket of my cardigan and gently placed the crumpled receipt on the table between us. His face went pale so fast it almost made me flinch. Silence. Just the clink of the fork against the plate. His eyes flicked to the receipt, then back to me. He didn't even try to lie. "Where'd you find that?" he asked, voice low. "In your jeans pocket. Yesterday. When I was doing laundry." He sat back in his chair, arms crossed over his chest in a way that screamed defense mode. I could feel the air tighten between us. "I wasn't going to say anything," I said softly. "Not at first. I wanted to pretend I hadn't seen it. Wanted to convince myself it wasn't yours. But I know it was." He didn't deny it, didn't make excuses. Just said, "Yeah, it was mine." I nodded slowly, my throat dry. "Okay. I appreciate you being honest." And then I added, "But I need you to tell me what's going on." He looked down at his plate, pushed a piece of spaghetti around with his fork. The confidence he'd been clinging to a moment ago was already starting to unravel. "It was just once," he said. I stayed quiet. "It was at Nate's place. His older brother bought it. It was just, like, a couple sips." "A couple sips of what, exactly?" I asked, though I already knew. He hesitated. "Jack." I closed my eyes. Not because I couldn't handle the answer, but because I could. "Did you get drunk?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, I didn't even finish it. It was disgusting." I wanted to believe him. Every part of me wanted to believe him. But I also remembered being 15. I remembered how it felt to lie just enough to make something bad sound better. To offer just enough truth to seem cooperative, while keeping the parts that would get you in real trouble tucked away. "I'm not going to scream," I said, gently. "I'm not going to ground you for the rest of your life, but I need to understand why. Why do this? Why now?" He sat there for a long time, and then he said something I wasn't expecting. "I just wanted to know what it was like. Everyone talks about it, like it's not a big deal." And I didn't want to be the only one who'd never tried anything. My heart broke a little, not because he wanted to try something, but because of why. The pressure to belong, to not be the weird one, to be in the group, not outside of it. I knew that feeling intimately. "Were you scared?" I asked. He nodded. "A little." "Did it feel good?" He shook his head. "Not really. Just kind of stupid." But I didn't know how to say no once it was in front of me. That part hit me the hardest. Because here's the thing. No one tells you when you're raising boys. Just because they look like they're growing up doesn't mean they know how to hold their ground yet. The outside matures before the inside catches up. The muscles grow faster than the emotional tools. And in that moment, I wasn't looking at a boy who defied me. I was looking at a boy who got caught in a wave and didn't know how to swim out. "I'm not mad," I said, which was half true. "I'm not happy," I added, which was the other half. I need you to know how serious this is. You're 15, Theo. Your brain isn't ready for this stuff. You don't know yet how fast something small can spiral." He nodded, still not meeting my eyes. "I trust you," I said, "but trust is a living thing. It has to be taken care of. And when it gets broken, even a little, it takes time to fix." He finally looked up. "I'm sorry," and I believed him. But I also knew sorry wasn't a solution. "I need you to come to me next time," I said, "even if you think I'll freak out, even if you already made a bad decision. Especially then." He nodded again, more solidly this time. "Okay, We sat in silence for a few minutes. He ate the rest of his dinner slowly. I barely touched mine. But something unspoken settled between us. Something fragile, but hopeful. Later that night, I stood at his bedroom door. He had his headphones on, staring at his laptop. I knocked gently. He pulled one earphone off. "I'm proud of you," I said. He blinked. "For what?" I messed up. For talking to me. For being real. He gave a small nod, a flicker of a smile. And as I walked away, I realized something I hadn't been able to admit before. This wasn't the beginning of the end. It was the beginning of the middle. The messy, awkward, emotional middle of growing up. And letting your kid grow with as much guidance as grace. There will be more mistakes. On his side. On mine. But now we were walking through them together. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The next morning, I stood in the shower longer than necessary, letting the hot water hit my back, like it might somehow loosen the tension that had settled in my shoulders. My thoughts kept circling the same drain, looping back to the conversation with Theo the night before. I kept replaying it like a scene in a movie I couldn't pause. The quiet way he said, "I'm sorry." The look in his eyes. The way his voice cracked slightly when he admitted he didn't know how to say no. There's this illusion people have about parenting, that you'll know when you've crossed into a serious phase, that there'll be some kind of warning or marker that tells you this is the moment where things change. But that's not how it works. It happens on a random Wednesday. It happens between laundry loads and spaghetti dinners. It happens while you're still trying to remember if you replied to that work email and why your bathroom light is flickering again. And suddenly, your baby is making grown-up decisions with a not yet grown-up brain. After I got dressed, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and stared out the window at absolutely nothing. The house was quiet, too quiet. It was still early, and Theo was upstairs getting ready for school. The silence made space for thoughts I didn't want to have. How much more don't I know? What else has he kept from me? What if this is just the beginning? I knew I couldn't spiral again, so I did what any semi-functioning adult does when their world feels shaky. I called my mom. "Hey, Ma," I said when she picked up. "You're calling before 8 a.m. Either something's wrong, or you finally realized that guy on the news is actually your high school lab partner." "Definitely the first one," I sighed. "Okay, talk to me." So I did. I told her about the receipt, the alcohol, the conversation, the guilt. She listened without interrupting, a rare gift she's always given me. And when I finally stopped talking, she took a long pause before saying, "Laura, I'm going to say something you're not going to like. Perfect. You didn't fail. You just started the next chapter." I blinked. It doesn't feel like a chapter. It feels like a collapse. It always does. You think when I caught you sneaking out at 16, I thought, ah yes, the next chapter of Laura's emotional development has begun? I couldn't help but smile. You grounded me for a month. Damn right I did. And you still turned out okay. I exhaled. You want him to be honest with you, she continued. Then you have to stay honest with yourself. This age is messy. It's not about perfection. It's about proximity. Stay close. That's your job now. We hung up after a few more minutes of mom wisdom and light sarcasm, and I sat there thinking about that last part. Stay close. Not hover. Not interrogate. Not punish just to feel like I had control. Stay close. That afternoon, I picked Theo up from school. It wasn't a planned thing. He usually walked home or got a ride with his friend Nate, but I felt like being there. He didn't seem surprised when he saw me. Just opened the passenger door, tossed his bag in the back, and got in. "Hey," he said. "Hey," I replied. We drove in silence for a while. Not the tense kind, just the kind that sits between two people still figuring out what's safe to say. Then he cleared his throat. "So, are we good?" I glanced at him. "We're okay." He nodded. "I know I messed up." "I know." We drove a little further. "Are you mad that I didn't tell you sooner?" he asked. "Yes," I said honestly. "But not because you made a mistake. Because I want to be the person you feel safe telling it to." He didn't respond, but his jaw tightened slightly. "You can always come to me," I added, "even if you've done something you regret. Especially then." He nodded again. "Okay." We passed a park we used to go to when he was little. He noticed it too. "Remember when I used to make you go down the slide with me even though I could do it alone?" "Barely," I said, smiling. "You were like 4. I wasn't scared of the slide. I just didn't want to do it by myself. Something about the way he said it made my throat tighten. That evening, I sat on the couch with my laptop open, pretending to work but really scrolling through old photos. One in particular caught my eye. Theo, at maybe 6 or 7, missing a front tooth, holding a popsicle and grinning like he'd just discovered the meaning of life. And I wondered, when did he stop telling me everything? I knew the answer, of course. He didn't stop all at once. It happened slowly. A withheld detail here. A vague fine when I asked about school. A door closed instead of left open. He wasn't shutting me out. He was figuring out how to hold more of himself inside. And maybe that's what adolescence is. A slow shifting of weight from parent to child. And if you're lucky, if you're really, really lucky, they still let you help carry some of it now and then. Later, I walked by his room. The door was slightly open. He was sitting on his bed, hoodie pulled over his head, scrolling through his phone. I tapped gently. He looked up. I was thinking, I said, maybe this weekend we could do something, just the two of us. He raised an eyebrow. Like what? I don't know. Movie, bowling, food, something easy. He stared at me for a moment, then shrugged. Yeah, okay, that'd be cool. And just like that, the heaviness lifted. Not all of it, not permanently, but enough. Because connection isn't one big gesture. It's small moments stacked on top of each other, day by day. And if I had to start rebuilding the bridge one weekend at a time, I'd do it, gladly. Because even though the rules had changed, even though the stakes were higher now, one thing hadn't changed. I was still his mom, and I would keep showing up. You don't realize how much you watch your teenager until something cracks between you. Suddenly, every shrug feels loaded. Every eye roll feels personal. Every time they close the door a little faster than usual, it stings. After that first real conversation about the drinking, things felt quiet, not bad, just different. Like there was a thin film of distance over everything. Not enough to break us, but enough that I could feel it between us. Like walking through a house where someone's just had a hard conversation and no one's quite sure if the air is okay yet. Theo wasn't avoiding me, but he wasn't reaching for me either. It was subtle. Like when he used to hold my hand crossing the street and then one day he just didn't. He still walked beside me, still looked both ways, but the contact was gone. That's how it felt now. No more jokes shouted from the other room. No more casual updates about what the group chat was saying. Just a quiet, neutral kind of politeness. He was keeping himself safe. From me. And it hurt more than I wanted to admit. It was Saturday morning when I finally broke. Not in front of him. In the bathroom. I'd gone in to clean the mirror and ended up sitting on the closed toilet seat with a bottle of Windex in one hand and my other hand over my mouth, trying not to make a sound. I wasn't sobbing. It wasn't dramatic. It was just this quiet, painful ache that had nowhere else to go. And it wasn't just about Theo drinking. It was about everything. About raising a child mostly alone. About never knowing if I'm doing it right. About juggling a job, bills, groceries, parent-teacher emails, and now this, new terrain. A world of hidden decisions and growing shadows and teenage voices that don't always tell the whole story. And here's the truth I never wanted to say out loud. Sometimes I don't like this version of motherhood. Not because I don't love my son. I do, with a fierceness that lives in my bones. But because this version comes with so much uncertainty, and fear, and emotional tightrope walking, and unlike when he was little, I can't just scoop him up, kiss his forehead, and make everything okay. Now, I have to trust him to make it okay, and that's the hardest part. That evening, we went to see a movie, something simple and loud, with too many explosions and a thin plotline, just the way Theo liked it. He didn't say much on the way there, but he didn't wear his earbuds, which, these days, felt like a gesture of affection. I let him pick the snacks. He ordered a Coke and a giant tub of popcorn, and when I raised my eyebrow, he smirked like, "What?" "It's the weekend." I laughed. That small sound, our old rhythm, cracked the silence between us. We didn't talk during the movie, but every now and then, I'd glance at him in the dark, watching how much taller he looked in the seat next to me, how grown his profile seemed. He had my chin, his father's nose, and a little line in his forehead he got from neither of us, probably from too many late-night group chats, and worrying whether someone liked his Instagram story. After the movie, we sat in the car in silence for a moment. I liked it, he said finally, buckling his seatbelt. Yeah. It was dumb, but good dumb. I smiled. Thanks for going with me. He shrugged. You asked. I said yes. Pause. I'm glad you asked. That last part, barely above a whisper, hit me in the heart. It was a breadcrumb, an offering, a sign that maybe the bridge wasn't broken, just under construction. The next day, I was in the kitchen when I heard Theo laugh from his room. A real laugh, not the fake social one he does in public, but the one where his voice cracks and he snorts just a little at the end. I stood still for a moment, listening, and I realized something important. Even in all this fear and mess and uncertainty, there was still light. He still laughed. He still came home. He still was mine, even as he was becoming his own. Later that night, he joined me on the couch without me asking. We sat side by side, legs curled in opposite directions, sharing a bowl of pretzels and watching a cooking show we'd both mock but secretly enjoy. During a quiet part, I said, "Can I ask you something?" "Yeah. Do you still think about what happened last week?" He nodded. "Yeah, a lot. Do you regret it?" Another nod. "I don't know. I regret hiding it. I don't think I really wanted to drink. I think I just didn't want to say no." I stayed quiet, letting him speak on his terms. I just hate being the one who doesn't go along. Like, what if they think I'm lame? What if they stop inviting me? I turned toward him. "Theo, if you have to drink to be included, are they really your people?" He sighed. "I know. That's what you're supposed to say. It's also true." He looked at me, then really looked at me, and for a moment, I saw him as he was at 5 years old, eyes wide, searching for answers, hoping I had them all. Now, he was 15, and I didn't have all the answers, but I had something better, presence. I reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. We sat like that, hand in hand, wordless, while a chef on TV flamed something in a pan that neither of us could name. And in that small, ordinary moment, I felt something settle inside me. We were going to be okay. Not because everything was fixed, not because the fear was gone, but because we were still in it together. And sometimes, that's everything. There's something nobody tells you about parenting a teenager. You spend a lot of time talking to walls. Not literally, although there are days when you might as well. I mean emotionally. You talk, you offer, you open the door and nothing. A grunt, a shrug, maybe a yeah, if you're lucky. Most days, the silence feels like rejection. But if you look closer, it's not that they're not listening. It's that they're afraid to believe you're still trying. After the movie night, things between Theo and I felt lighter, not fixed, not reset, but less fragile. The tension wasn't gone, but it had softened into something we could both sit inside without flinching. Still, I knew one good moment didn't mean the problem was behind us. The drinking was just the symptom. What I needed to understand was the root, so I started to try something different. Instead of confronting, I asked questions. Instead of reminding, I listened more. Instead of filling the silence with advice, I let it be awkward. One afternoon, we were in the car after I picked him up from practice. He was sweaty and starving, as usual, so I offered to stop for tacos. Food, I've learned, is a shortcut to truth with teenage boys. Halfway through his burrito, I said, "Hey, can I ask you something?" He looked at me suspiciously, mid-bite. "Is this gonna turn into another talk?" I smiled. "Not unless you want it to. I'm just curious." He shrugged, gave a little nod. "If you could rewind that night at Nate's, would you still say yes to the drink?" He wiped his mouth with a napkin, thinking, I don't know, probably not, but also, like, everyone was doing it. "Yeah, that's the part that gets tricky." He looked at me sideways. "You ever drank when you weren't supposed to?" I paused, then laughed. "Oh, absolutely." That surprised him. He smiled, then narrowed his eyes. "Wait, like, how young?" I took a sip of my soda. 15, 16, once in a field behind someone's house. It was gross. I tried to pretend it was fun, but it mostly made me feel stupid and dizzy. He laughed. "Yeah, that sounds right." We sat in that weird little restaurant, dipping chips in salsa and talking like two people learning to trust each other again. I guess I just want to be the one who decides for me, he said finally. Not just do stuff because someone else is. And there it was. The root. Control. Identity. Autonomy. The very things the adolescent brain is biologically wired to seek. And the very things that make parenting at this stage feel like balancing on the edge of a blade. That night, after Theo went to bed, I sat in my bedroom with the lights off. Just me, my blanket, and the kind of stillness that only exists in houses where teens live. The calm after the storm, the kind that hums with uncertainty. I scrolled through photos again, as I often do when I feel unmoored. One from a birthday party when he turned 10, icing on his nose, arms around 2 friends, the kind of joy that doesn't know it's temporary. Then another, him at 12, wearing a hoodie too big, trying to look cool, but still letting me take the picture. And then recent ones, selfies with his friends, taken in lighting I can barely see anything in, his face half obscured, barely smiling. And I realized the smile I used to see every day now came in flashes, short bursts, never staged. Not for me anymore, for the world he's slowly entering, one I'm no longer always invited into. I put the phone down and stared at the ceiling. Is this what it means to be a good parent now? To step back, quietly, to love without needing to be seen? No gold stars, no obvious proof that you're doing well, just the work, the presence, the quiet staying. It's funny, when they're little, they cling to you. Every moment is witnessed. Every hug is returned. Now, half the love you give goes unanswered, but it's still received. They just don't know how to say thank you yet. The next day, I left a note on Theo's bedroom door. Nothing dramatic, just, thanks for talking to me. I know this stuff isn't easy. You're not alone in it, and you don't have to be perfect, just honest. I love you, Mom. He didn't mention the note, but that evening, I noticed he'd left his door open while doing homework. A small thing, but in teen language, it meant I trust you enough to leave space between us again. Later that week, I got a text from his school. It was an invite to a parent night about healthy teen habits and risk behaviors, the kind of event I would have deleted last month. This time, I put it on my calendar, not because I expected answers, but because I wanted to keep showing up. Even if half the time I'm guessing, even if I still cry in the bathroom sometimes, even if I don't know if he's listening when I speak. Because this is the part of parenting that no one photographs for Instagram. The invisible work, the silent holding of boundaries and fears and love and fear again. It's not glamorous, it's not rewarded, but it's everything. But before we dive into this thrilling story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit like so that YouTube can show you more content like this. It was a Wednesday. Again, I don't know why Wednesdays seem to be the days my world tilts just slightly off balance. Enough that you almost don't notice it, until suddenly, you're not where you thought you were. I was at the grocery store, of all places, staring at a row of cereal boxes and debating whether I should finally switch Theo to the whole grain version, even though I knew he'd complain. That's when I got the message. Not from Theo, not from the school, from Vanessa. Vanessa is one of those perfectly polished moms whose workout leggings probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. She's sweet, a little intense, the kind of mom who volunteers for everything and somehow still has great hair. Her text was short. Hey, Laura, this may be nothing, but I overheard the boys talking in the car today. Something about a party last weekend, and someone bringing drinks. Just thought you'd want to know. Hope it's not a big deal. My stomach dropped. I read the text 3 times. Then I stood frozen in the cereal aisle, my hand still hovering over a box of Cheerios, heart pounding in that slow, hot way it does when your body already knows the truth before your brain catches up. A party. Drinks. Again. I didn't even know there was a party, and he hadn't told me anything. On the way home, I rehearsed the conversation in my head at least 10 different ways. Confront calmly. Ask open-ended questions. Don't accuse. Don't explode. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I'd built a fragile mental plan, one I fully expected to go up in flames the second I saw him. Theo was in the kitchen, snacking on something straight from the bag, as usual. He looked up when I walked in. Hey, he said, casual. Hey. I dropped my purse on the counter, took a breath. Then, as gently as I could manage, I asked, Was there a party last weekend? He paused just enough to confirm everything. Sort of, he said. Sort of the kind where there was drinking? He didn't speak right away. Then, I didn't drink. That should have calmed me, but it didn't. Why didn't you tell me there was a party at all? He shrugged. I knew you'd assume the worst. I exhaled, slow and sharp. Can you really blame me? He opened his mouth, closed it again, then said something that pierced through me. It's hard to talk to you now. You're always watching me, waiting for me to mess up again. That stopped me cold, not because it wasn't true, but because it was. Since the Jack Daniels incident, I'd been on emotional high alert. Every smile felt suspicious. Every text he sent while in the next room triggered a quiet unease. I was parenting like someone tiptoeing around a bruise, and now he could feel it. I sat down at the kitchen table. He stayed standing, arms crossed, clearly bracing. I'm not trying to catch you, Theo. I'm trying to figure out how to trust you again, and how to make sure you're safe without pushing you away. He stared at the floor. I didn't drink, he repeated, softer this time. I could have. Everyone was doing it, but I didn't. Why not? I asked. He looked up. Because I didn't want to lie again. That hit me harder than any punishment ever could have hit him. I nodded. My chest ached, but it wasn't fear this time. It was something else, something quieter. Grief, not for a death, but for the innocence that keeps slipping away, piece by piece. Later that night, I lay in bed thinking about how much of parenting is done in the dark. Not literal darkness. Although yes, plenty of it happens after bedtime. I mean the kind of dark where you're guessing, hoping, fumbling your way forward with no roadmap, no confirmation you're doing it right. There's no grade, no applause, just silence. You teach, you worry, you forgive, you wait, you repeat. And if you're lucky, you get moments, like that one, when your teenage son looks you in the eye and tells you the truth, even when he didn't have to. The next day, I picked him up from school again, just because. He got in the car, threw his bag in the back, and turned to me. Can we get ice cream? I glanced at him. What for? He shrugged. Just feels like a day for it. And I swear, I could have cried. Not because of the ice cream, but because he still wanted to sit beside me, in public, with sugar on our faces, like nothing was broken. So we went. We didn't talk about the party, or about trust, or about drinking. We just laughed about the size of his sundae and who in his class was making weird TikToks during lunch. And it felt good, not because things were perfect, but because they were real. That night, I texted Vanessa back. Thank you for the heads up. We talked. I'm doing my best, like all of us. One day, hopefully, they'll thank us, or at least not end up on the news. She responded with a heart and a wine emoji, and for the first time in days, I slept without bracing for a disaster. Parenting a teenager is like trying to hug a cactus. They need you. You know they do. They want to lean in, just for a second, just enough, but then their armor spikes up again, and you end up with tiny invisible cuts. Most of the time, you try not to bleed, but sometimes the cuts go a little deeper, and that's what happened on a Monday. Not a Wednesday for once. Growth, maybe. It started small. They always do. Theo had left his soccer bag on the kitchen floor for the third time that week. I tripped over it while trying to feed the dog. Coffee sloshed onto my white shirt. Nothing catastrophic. Just real life. The kind that grinds at you when you're already running on emotional fumes. I called upstairs, louder than I meant to. Theo, come get your stuff. No answer. I tried again. Sharper. Still nothing. So I marched up there, knocked once, and pushed his door open. He had headphones on, eyes locked on his screen, fingers flying across the keyboard. I waited, crossed my arms. Finally, he noticed me, pulled off one earphone. What? The bag, the kitchen, the coffee, the dog. He blinked at me. What are you talking about? And that was it. That wasn't what set me off. What set me off was the way he said it. Flat, distracted, like I was background noise. I'm talking about the fact that I've asked you 3 times this week not to leave your stuff where people walk, I said, my voice rising despite my best efforts. It's not that big of a deal, he muttered. Not to you, I snapped, because you're not the one cleaning it up. He rolled his eyes. And Lord, I wish I could say I stayed calm, but I didn't. "Don't roll your eyes at me, Theo," I said, voice clipped. He opened his mouth. Then I said the thing I immediately regretted. "You know what? This is exactly what I mean. You lie about drinking, you hide things, and now you can't even pick up your bag." The silence that followed was thick and instant. He stood. "I didn't lie this time. I never said you did. You just said, I lie. Like that's what I do now." I opened my mouth, closed it. He kept going. His voice cracked on the third word. "I'm trying, okay? But everything I do now, you just look at me like I'm about to screw up again. I tell you something, and you stare like you're analyzing it. I walk in the room and you flinch." "I don't flinch," I said quietly. "You don't trust me." I looked at him. He was taller now. That part snuck up on me. We were almost eye level. He had his father's jaw, my eyes, and this defiant tilt to his shoulders I'd never noticed before, like he was standing for something, even if he didn't know what yet. "I do trust you," I said, "but I'm still hurt." And there it was, the truth I'd been holding in for weeks. I wasn't just worried. I wasn't just tired. I was hurt by the lying, by the silence, by the fact that he'd needed to hide things from me at all. He softened, not all the way, but enough to sit back down. I stepped into the room, sat on the edge of the bed. "I know you're trying," I said, "and I see it. I do. But I'm learning too." He looked up at me, unsure. I continued, my voice lower now. "Do you remember when you were little and used to get night terrors?" He blinked. "Kind of. You'd wake up screaming and wouldn't know where you were. I'd hold you and talk you down, and you'd say later that you didn't remember any of it." He nodded. "Well, that's what this feels like. Except now I'm the one terrified, and you don't always see it." His eyes welled slightly, and he looked away. We sat there, letting the emotion thicken in the room like fog. Then he said, "I didn't drink at that party. I swear. I didn't want to. I thought about it. I really did. But then I heard your voice." "My voice?" He gave a half smile. "Not like talking to me, but like in my head, telling me that it's okay to walk away, that I won't be weak if I do." I couldn't speak for a second. "I didn't think you listened to that stuff I say," I finally whispered. He shrugged. "I act like I don't, but I do." And that was when I broke. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears, slow and steady. He didn't run away from it. He didn't say, "Don't cry, Mom." He didn't get uncomfortable. He just sat there and then quietly said, "I don't want to be a disappointment." That sentence split me in two. I reached out and pulled him into a hug, one of those real, full-body, hold-each-other-up kind of hugs. "You're not," I said into his shoulder. "You never could be." We stayed like that a long time, and I thought, this is the moment that matters. Not the test scores, not the soccer games, not the parent nights or the report cards. This, sitting on the edge of a messy teenage bedroom, hugging your 15-year-old son who's brave enough to admit he hears your voice even when you're not around. That's the kind of parenting win no one sees. But it's everything. Later that night, I walked past his room and saw the bag was gone from the kitchen. In its place, a small sticky note on the counter. It said, "Sorry for earlier. I got it. P.S. I know Cheerios are healthier, but can we at least get the honey ones?" I laughed, a real laugh, and whispered to no one, "We're gonna be okay. There's no finish line in parenting. No. Congratulations. You survived adolescence. Trophy. Just a series of small moments that tell you you're still connected. They're still choosing you. You're still in this. Together." The Sunday before Theo's 16th birthday, we were in the garage digging through old boxes looking for the camping chairs. He said he wanted to go to the beach at sunrise that week. Just the two of us. No phones, no friends, no reason he could clearly explain. I said yes before he even finished the sentence. He was taller than me now. Officially, unquestionably taller. He walked with a different rhythm, less bounce, more weight. His voice was deeper, his jokes quicker. And yet, I still saw flashes of the boy he used to be. The one who wore superhero capes to the grocery store and cried if I sang the wrong bedtime song. Now, he was asking to watch the sunrise with his mom. That's something, I thought. In the garage, he opened a box labeled Theo School Stuff and pulled out an old drawing. a lopsided stick figure holding hands with a taller one, both under a giant sun with 6 arms. He laughed. "Why does your head look like a lemon?" I grinned. "Because you were 6 and didn't understand anatomy." He held it a second longer than I expected, then placed it gently back in the box. "Were you scared?" he asked suddenly. "When I told you about the drinking, I didn't pretend. Not this time." "Yes, because you didn't trust me." "No," I said, "because I knew what the world could do with one bad decision." He nodded, quiet. "You know, sometimes I think you see me as this overreacting, overly emotional, rule-making machine." He gave me a side glance. I laughed. "Fair. But the truth is, most of the time I'm just figuring it out in real time. And the stakes feel so high." "They are," he said. I looked at him, surprised. "They are high, but I'm not trying to make your life harder, Mom. I don't always know how to say when I need space, or help, or when I've messed up." I exhaled. There it was, the quiet middle ground we'd been trying to find. On his birthday, I made his favorite breakfast, bacon, French toast, and that sugary orange drink he pretends to hate but always finishes. He came downstairs, groggy and hoodie-wrapped, and mumbled, "Morning." I kissed the top of his head before he could duck away. "Happy birthday," I said. He sat down, looked at the plate, and said, "Thanks. This looks awesome." A pause. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course. I'm scared to turn 16. I looked up. "I don't know why," he added. "I guess it just feels real. Like I'm closer to driving, closer to college, closer to everything. And I don't feel ready for any of it." I walked over, pulled a chair beside him. "You're not supposed to feel ready. You're supposed to feel scared. Scared means it matters." He looked down, twisting the fork in his fingers. "Do you think I'm doing okay?" The question nearly split me in half, because that's what it comes down to, doesn't it? Every slammed door, every eye roll, every awkward silence, underneath it all is the same, aching question, "Am I okay?" I put my hand over his. "I think you're doing better than okay. I think you're brave, and honest, and still learning, like the rest of us." He didn't respond right away, but he squeezed my hand back. That afternoon, we drove to the beach with blankets and a bag of snacks. The sun was already beginning its slow descent, casting everything in gold. We sat on the sand, not talking much. He leaned back on his elbows, squinting at the sky. "I think the hardest part of being this age is that everyone expects you to already know who you are," he said. I looked at him. "You don't have to. That's the point. You're still becoming. And what if I don't like who I become? Then you change. That's the secret no one tells you. We don't become one thing. We become over and over." He let that sit for a minute. Then he turned to me and said, "I'm glad you didn't give up on me. After the whole everything. I never even thought about it. Not even a little. Not even for a second." He looked down, smiling. "Okay, cool." That was it. That was the whole conversation. And yet, in that tiny exchange was everything we'd fought to rebuild. Not trust in theory, trust in action. Not love that's spoken, love that's shown. That night, I wrote in my journal, something I hadn't done in months. I wrote, "He's 16 now. Not a boy, not yet a man. Somewhere between my baby and a stranger, I'm still learning. Today, he told me he was scared. And today, I remembered that motherhood is not about control. It's about proximity. It's about sitting close, even when you're not the center anymore. It's about standing still long enough for them to return." The next morning, I found a note on the fridge in his handwriting. "Thanks for everything yesterday. And the last 16 years. I know I don't always say it, but I see it. Love you. T." And that was it. No parade, no big finish, just a piece of paper on a fridge. And the full, beating heart of a mother who finally realized she didn't need to be perfect. She just needed to stay. If you enjoyed the story, give it a like and subscribe to the channel to support us. We'd also love it if you left a comment telling us which city you're listening from and whether you identified with this mother in any way. Have you ever gone through something similar to this story? If you can, share it with another mother who might be needing this dose of affection and hope. You are very important to us, and we thank you for being part of this community of reflection and love. Thank you so much, and see you next time.